Howdy, it's Sam. Welcome to the Wobble and Jaw Sports channel. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel. And if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. I'm going to try something new this season for 2023, some power rankings. And this video is not a premiership odds predictions video. No, this is a power rankings based off the past 2 weeks in the preseason, and I'm going to rank everybody's performance, and this power rankings list is going to remain the same until the day after round one is complete. So who do I think has been the worst performed and is going to come into the season with the least amount of momentum? And conversely, who else is coming in with a full head of steam? Let's find out. Coming in number 17, the team I think is coming in with the least amount of momentum in 2023 are the Dolphins. The Dolphins drew against the North Queensland Cowboys, who were basically their young stars squad. The Dolphins, however, were featuring a first grade experienced backline in that preseason game in match number one, and with the sprinkling of youth and talent, youth and experience in the forward pack. Then you fast forward 1 week to the game against the Gold Coast Titans. That was just about the Redcliffe Dolphins' best 17 that they could have put out on the paddock. And while I understand it is just a trial, and while I understand that of all the teams this year, they're going to need the most amount of time to gel, I cannot unsee what I saw last weekend. There is going to be a lot of time, a lot of water that goes under the bridge for the Redcliffe Dolphins before they really start executing well. Watch them come out and beat the Roosters in round one, right? But the Dolphins went down poorly, very, very poorly against the Gold Coast Titans just last night, 40 points to 16. That's a compliment to the Titans, but I thought the Dolphins were incredibly flat and disappointing inside that first 25 minutes to half an hour. So I'd say the Dolphins are coming into the NRL season with the least amount of momentum, and they are number 17 on my power rankings video. Number 16 is a side that had a bit of fire, a bit of fight about him in the first preseason game, but they got done and dusted and did not prove wrong all the doubters about their potential wooden spoon, their low ceiling in 2023. I'm talking about the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Whilst for about 60 minutes there, the Dragons were able to keep the scoreline looking competitive for me. I didn't think they were ever in that game. I thought St. Helens had them in the bag the entire time, even though the scoreline for about 60 minutes would have suggested otherwise. The Dragons last week, or just the other day, out at Mudgee against the South Sydney Rabbitohs in the Charity Shield, were dusted up about 26 points to nil. Come halftime, they looked really poor inside that first half. However, credit to them, whilst the South Sydney Rabbitohs did chop and change in that second half, the Dragons were able to put 24 points on. That's a nice collection of points. That's a nice bag of tries, especially when you've been down 26-0 at halftime. But they did leak 40 plus points, and it is the only reason those 24 points the Dragons were able to score. That is the only reason why I've got them above the Dolphins, sitting in number 16. Number 15 is definitely, without a doubt, in my opinion, the most disappointing side over the past 2 weeks. They are the Canberra Raiders. They have lost Xavier Savage for approximately 6 weeks, thereabouts, and Jordan Rapana looks like he's going to miss round number one against the North Queensland Cowboys because of suspension and because of a high shot where his shoulder connected with Adam Dewey's face. So the Canberra Raiders, let alone that, they had a poor outing for about 60 odd minutes against the Bulldogs in the first preseason game. And then the second preseason game against the West Tigers, they had the likes of Tarpanay, Papali'i, White, and Fogarty. I could go on and on, Danny Levi. Besides a whirlwind, crazy good try that they scored against the Tigers, they were the first team to score points, by the way. The Tigers just decimated them. The Raiders looked hopeless in attack, and Ricky Stewart sitting up in the box, a couple of shots of him suggested that things are not going to plan, and they looked like a side. This may be too harsh, and it is just a preseason, so I know, but it looked like Michael Maguire, Ricky Stewart have just turned up their anger to level 11, and they just look like a side that has already been beaten from pillar to post throughout the off season, bro. I don't know, man. They didn't sync very well this past week. They didn't sync well for the past couple of weeks. I'd say that their B grade squad put in a better performance in week one against the Bulldogs, and they lost that game bloody 13 plus just about. So the Raiders, they have definitely been the most disappointing side over the past couple of weeks. They are 15 on my power rankings video, and they're not coming into round one against the Cowboys with a whole lot of momentum behind them. Team number 14 on my power rankings list before round one comes about, the Newcastle Knights. I can't believe I've got the Knights over the Raiders, but here we are. I think that they were just a bit more impressive than the Canberra Raiders. Their performance against the Cronulla Sharks, this is going to be a bit of a theme. The Newcastle Knights for the first 60 minutes just weren't in it. They really weren't in it. Jackson Hastings looked like he was very, very rusty. The combination with Tyson Gamble looked really awkward. Then things clicked when Adam Clune came onto the field, and they were able to score 2 tries inside the final 5 or 10 minutes, which made the scoreboard look a hell of a lot more respectable than what it could have. Then last weekend against the Parramatta Eels, Kalen Ponga was in there at 5'8". It's a trial, so not going to be overly too harshly critical. But I thought Ponga and Hastings did show some glimpses there. Jaden Brayley, the captain at hooker, he's just a weapon. But Lockie Miller, bro, oh man, can he zig and can he zag, bro? They were the first team to score a try in that contest against the Parramatta Eels, and I'd say they were well in the thick of it beyond the 50-minute mark. I'd say the Newcastle Knights had a decent account of themselves in that contest against the Parramatta Eels, and that's why I've got them above the Canberra Raiders, the Dragons, and the Dolphins. But defensively, they did leak like a sieve in the final 10 minutes of that first half, which ultimately led to them being losers against the Parramatta Eels. And the Knights also just attacking. While they did score some points, they still look clunky, but that's what preseason's for, is to knock off the rust. So I've got the Newcastle Knights coming into week 1 of 2023 as team number 14. Team number 13 on my power rankings list may be viewed as a little bit too harsh, but I've got the West Tigers in at number 13. They got the wooden spoon last year, so they're coming from a low place. Their first game against the New Zealand Warriors over at Mount Smart Stadium, they only Stefano Uto Ikamanu showed up, and that's pretty much it. Yes, they were able to score 12 points in that game, but 48 points in their very first hit out. They've been working all off season, and that's what they dished up defensively. That was not good enough. Then they take on the Canberra Raiders yesterday, and they did leak the first try, and they did look a bit rusty, especially Adam Dewey, man. He had a couple of rough touches, but they figured it out. But I think the Raiders were that bad that they did make the Tigers look that much better. I don't think the Tigers, while they did score the one try, I don't think they fully took advantage of the one man down for the Canberra Raiders. One of the players being Sin Bin Jordan Rapana. So Tigers also Isaiah Papali'i, I don't think he got into the game nearly as much as what I think everybody would have liked to have seen him. Like, I don't even think I think he's coming in round one with a cobweb or two on his shoulders, put it that way. But full credit to the Tigers, they did put the Raiders to the sword, but it's more so a trust thing. I think they have been better than the Newcastle Knights. I think that performance against the Raiders just pips them to be better over the Newcastle Knights and the Raiders, Dragons, and the Dolphins. And I cannot wait to see what Coruscant and John Bateman look like in a Tigers jersey come round number one. So I've got Tigers coming in as team number 13. Team number 12, the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. The Bulldogs beat a really awful, for most of the game, Canberra Raiders outfit in week one of the preseason challenge. In week number two, they were spicy. They were spicy against the Cronulla Sharks yesterday for about half of football. But yeah, man, they're another team that's coming from a bit far down the well. They're a team that is going to have a brand new outlook, a brand new game plan, and that's going to take time. And not too sure if I've seen what that game plan might have been or what it could be in 2023. Their defense would have been severely disappointing for someone like Cameron Ciraldo, who's coming in with quite a hell of a lot of hype on him. But again, it's just a trial. I thought it was so disappointing that Kickout got HIA'd yesterday, even though he scored a try inside the first 60 seconds. That was disappointing. I don't think Josh Adokar really hit any sort of groove as well. It was all around a really disappointing performance, and that game against the Raiders the week before, a week ago, was against a side that really, they didn't show up as well, bro. The Raiders have been that bad. They have been that bad. But I've got a few more signs from them that suggest to me that they should be coming in with a bit more momentum than the aforementioned teams, and that's why I've got the Bulldogs in at number 12. Team number 11 on my power rankings list, I've got the New Zealand Warriors. They absolutely wiped the floor, 48 points to 12 against the West Tigers a couple of weeks ago. Then the other day, then yesterday actually, they took on the Melbourne Storm at Christchurch and they could not hold the ball. And the New Zealand Warriors looked good. If they just held on to that ball, would have been a completely different scoreline than the 24 points to 6 scoreline that we got. Really disappointing because it's just the most fundamental basic thing in the game is to hold on to the pill. And I think they completed at about 50%. Just about both sides completed at about 50%. It was a really disappointing game, really disappointing effort by the New Zealand Warriors, considering what they did to, albeit a really young B-grade squad the week before in the Tigers. So, but against the Melbourne Storm, there was still just they were quite competitive. I know that the Storm afforded them chances, but it was vice versa. And I thought the Warriors, they still can take positives out of it, but it is just a step back to reality for the Warriors. But I do think they have been in better form than the other teams that I've just mentioned. And so that's why the New Zealand Warriors are going to come into 2023 as Team 11 on my power rankings list. I've got to be real. I have to be real if I'm doing a power rankings list. North Queensland Cowboys are going to come on this list as team number 10. They took on the Redcliffe Dolphins in week one of the preseason challenge. And while you've got James Tarmo and Jack Gajewski, for example, that did partake in that contest, the Redcliffe Dolphins, they fielded a very experienced backline with a sprinkling of veterans in the forward pack. And the Cowboys were able to salvage a draw. They were down with only 16 seconds remaining. And if it wasn't for Motha Drakey try in the corner, they would have lost that contest. But that's still a credit to them for the young guns to really take it to the Dolphins. He still had the likes of Ewan Aitken and Anthony Milford, a young prospect like Jack Bostock. I think that was a really good performance by the Cowboys. And then the Sunshine Coast match against the Brisbane Broncos happened on Saturday night. They didn't show up for the first 5 or 10 minutes, and that was ultimately their undoing. There were a few mistakes from everybody in the spine particularly. However, they did lose a high quality game of rugby league. They were in front, they were on the attack big time with only a minute to go, and they would have pipped another Queensland team right at the post. But alas, it was not meant to be. So I can't put them in the top eight. I know that coming off of 2022, they should be like automatic top six in a power rankings list. But this power rankings list is based off what we've just gotten from the past 2 weeks. And I think coming into 2023, I think the Cowboys, they did lose a little bit, have lost a little bit of momentum. There are teams that went undefeated. There are teams that didn't cop a draw and a loss as well. So on the power rankings list, I'd say the Cowboys have just hit a rock and fractured their toe a bit or bruised their toe, but come round one, they're going to skyrocket back up into the top four. Team number 9 on my power rankings list will be the Melbourne Storm. The Melbourne Storm, I would say, were probably a little bit more impressive in their loss to the Sydney Roosters compared to the win, the 13 plus points win against the New Zealand Warriors this past weekend. That first week, it was predominantly, besides Christian Walsh, for example, it was predominantly a really young Melbourne Storm pack that did take it to the Roosters. It was a high scoring, close-ish contest for a majority of that game. Justin Olam as well also got injured as well, and he's going to miss the first few weeks of this season. And then the other day against the New Zealand Warriors, the attack of the Melbourne Storm looked really, really clunky, bro. I think they are going to miss Brandon Smith. They are going to miss all that experience they've offloaded to the Redcliffe Dolphins. They're going to miss Kenny Bromwich as well, who has some 5'8" kicking ability as well on an edge. I think the Melbourne Storm may offensively maybe a little bit weaker in 2023, but who knows? But I reckon coming into the proper season, coming into round one, I think they have lost some momentum, and that's why I've got them as team number 9 on my power rankings list. Who is in my top 8 in my power rankings list? My first ever power rankings list. I've got the Parramatta Eels coming in at 8th, and I've actually predicted them to finish as 8th on the ladder come season's end. The game against the Parramatta Eels, they had Josh Hodgson, they had Ryan Matteson, I think they even had Sean Lane as well. So they had some decent veterans, and I understand that Hodgson was coming back from an ACL, but they did go down. They looked a clunky in attack. They went down to the Penrith Panthers, who were their New South Wales Cup side, except for maybe save Jamie Salmon and Matt Eisenhuth. The Parramatta Eels that took on the Penrith Panthers a couple of weeks ago thought they could have been a little bit better than what they produced. I know that they kept it close to the scoreline, but I think they had too much of a slow start. And then the other day against the Newcastle Knights in Gosford, they were slow starters again. The Knights were the first on the board. It was competitive for about a half a footy, but credit to the Parramatta Eels, they did put their foot down on the gas, but it's only against the Newcastle Knights though. So I've got the Parramatta Eels coming into round number 1, sitting in number 8. The side coming into round 1 for 2023 on my power rankings list, sitting at number 7, the Gold Coast Titans. The Titans against a man of the match led Reece Walsh in week 1 of the preseason challenge. They had to fight back from a big deficit to then salvage a 24 points all draw against the Broncos on the Sunshine Coast. And I think they were a little disappointing defensively, I should say. Then last night, they took on the Dolphins. The Titans put the Dolphins to the sword inside the first 20 minutes. It was finished inside 20 minutes. And for a long period there was maybe 5 minutes where they had to defend their line, and the Dolphins didn't do it. Eventually, the Dolphins did score 3 tries, just the one inside that first half. And save the grace is their saving grace, the Titans, is that it was a preseason, so errors are sort of allowed. I think the Titans, oh man, it was a really good performance. If this young Khan Pereira and Jojo Fafita line up on the wings in round number 1, and then you do your centers and you do your best 17 from there sort of thing. There is a lot of strike, a lot of points in this Gold Coast side, but the question I've got, the reason why they're not just a little bit higher, because they could have been, I reckon there was an opportunity for them to score 50 points and have a 52 points to 4 victory last night. Such was the effort by the Dolphins and such was the performance by the Titans. I think defensively, just they do need to improve, and that is the overarching theme for me on them for 2023 is what the hell is their defense going to look like? And it's going to be the same for every other punter out there as well. But the Titans, team number 7 on my power rankings list. I don't know why this might be surprising to some, considering it has been the norm for the past few years now, but the Eastern Suburbs Roosters are starting things slow again based off of preseason form. I know they got the victory against the Melbourne Storm, but I reckon they had a much stronger lineup than the Melbourne Storm in week 1 of the preseason challenge. And then they got blown off the park by the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. I've got the Roosters in at number 6. The older, more experienced blokes, they came off. The young talent came on. They were able to put in a better effort than the veterans as well. The Roosters, not very impressive. Like, they did get the win against the Storm away, but they were never in that game against Manly. Credit to Manly though. But yeah, the Sydney Roosters, bro. There are some people in some different circles that are suggesting the Roosters are not going to be that team that a lot of people think are going to be this season. I'm one of those people that think the Roosters are, unfortunately, going to carve up big time this year, with all due respect to East's supporters. But the preseason challenge, while it is just a preseason, not very impressive from the Sydney Roosters, who come in at number 6 on my power rankings list. I'll tell you what, team number 5, the Brisbane Broncos, if they can get everybody on the paddock at the same time, which hasn't happened yet, Reece Walsh and Adam Reynolds are still to come back into the fold. This side, bro, looked really good in person the other day. They defeated the North Queensland Cowboys in a quality contest. If Walsh and Reynolds had have played against the Cowboys outfit that were by and large full strength, save for Luciano Leilua, with Reynolds and Walsh, there's a world where they would have won by double digits just quietly. Such was the slow start by the Cowboys this past Saturday night. They were very impressive the other week as well against the Gold Coast Titans, where Walsh led them beautifully. He was absolutely sensational. If that's just the first taste we get of what he is going to do, what he is capable of in Broncos colours, oh man, this Broncos outfit, bro. They've had the worst off-field season of any of the clubs in 2022, 2023, but those two performances, though these past 2 weeks, should really start to dial up some more confidence in Brisbane Broncos supporters and put a little bit more fear into everybody else in the competition. Because damn, dude, they look pretty sharp. Well, they did look pretty sharp at times. I can't have them any higher than where I've got them in at team number 5. I know, they won the preseason challenge. They looked fantastic throughout the 2 weeks. I've just got to have Manly in at the top 4 just because they are coming from a bit far down the well. It is just preseason. I know they won, but so far as power rankings goes, as far as momentum goes, they still make my top 4. We know that Tommy Turbo is still to come back into the fold as well. Daly Cherry Evans as well. I have to credit the Manly Sea Eagles, bro. I think I'm going to be severely mistaken to have the Manly Sea Eagles finish 13th on my predicted NRL ladder. I so wish now that I did me NRL predictions after the preseason had come and gone, but I just got to cop it and wear it now. That's the team that I've chosen, but I'll tell you what, I think I'm already wrong about the Manly Sea Eagles, bro. They still may not make the top 8 because it's going to be so hard to crack it, but the Manly Sea Eagles, man, they've played some smooth, electric footy, bro. Talatau Kola, bro. Oh my God, I cannot wait to see more of that bloke as well. Tommy Turbo and DCE to be injected. Jason Saab as well. Oh, Manly, Manly. Team number 3 on my power rankings list, the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Yes, I know that they lost one of their games and Manly won 2 from 2. But there was a lot of unearthed talent for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Walker, Latrell Mitchell, more superstars did not partake in that game against Manly. Manly were a little bit more first grade, if you will, in that contest, in my opinion anyway. Then this past weekend, they put the sword to the Dragons big time. Latrell Mitchell looked like he had very much improved from his previous week's effort in the Indigenous All-Stars game, whereas Cody Walker I thought was solid inside that Indigenous All-Stars game as well. The Rabbitohs, bro, attackingly, they are going to be the most dangerous side in 2023. I have no doubt in my mind, but they leaked 24 points against the Dragons. They could have scored 50 themselves. They could have really made a statement, but you had to chop and change. I understand that. But 24 points, that's another question. They're sort of similar as the Gold Coast Titans. The one thing I need to see from both the Titans and the Rabbitohs is an improvement in defense, bro. This might be controversial. I've got the Penrith Panthers as the second best team coming into round number 1. Their game against the Parramatta Eels looked clunky, albeit it was their New South Wales Cup side. But they did take a nice lead, and then they didn't but the Parramatta Eels were able to find some cracks, some chinks in the armour, and the Penrith Panthers only just scraped away against the Parramatta Eels. And then one of the most stunning rugby league results in recent memory occurred the other night, where they went down in golden point extra time to St. Helens 13 points to 12. I have no idea. I haven't even watched it yet because I was up the sunny coast and I've been doing my own thing. So I'm yet to watch it. I still don't understand. It is such a stunning, stunning upset. One of the biggest upsets in years, bro. I'm happy for the Super League blokes. I was wrong that Panthers were going to win by 13 plus by 30 points to 10 or whatever I said it was. But Panthers, they are still the raging machine from 2022 to 2020, 2021. They are still going to be the team to beat in 2023. But Api Coruscant, Viliami Kikau would have been pretty all right for him in the World Club Challenge, just quietly. And the best team over the past 2 weeks, in my opinion, and the team that's coming into round 1 with the most momentum of anybody, in my opinion, are the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. Holy crap, bro. This team, well, I know the rugby league guru and bloke, they've already mentioned this, and I can only just see what I see and just agree with them and echo what they say in my own way, of course. The Sharks, out of nowhere, have got depth for days, bro. They defeated the Newcastle Knights and looked electric in doing so. And they just ended up toying with the Bulldogs yesterday, man. They came to be nasty in a traditionally nasty place. It's Belmore, it's the Dogs of War mentality that comes out. But the Sharks welcomed it and they brought it. They brought something of their own to the table. So the Sharkies, bro, I tipped them to come 5th. I think they might finish higher, bro. And they look grand final worthy. I know it's just preseason, but they look grand final worthy. What's your opinion on my power rankings video? Let me know if you'd like to see this continue. I probably will. But yeah, I've got the Cronulla Sharks coming into 2023 as a team with the best momentum, with the biggest amount of momentum riding behind them. Can't wait to see what happens when Team 1 plays Team 3 on my power rankings list in the form of Sharks versus Rabbitohs in round number 1 on Super Saturday. That's going to be a blockbuster. I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.